effectively so that we have enough spaces and beds available for people. And then the third objective, which is close coordination and ensuring logistics support for the operation. So we have the right equipment, the right supplies in the right place at the right time. Well, of course, there are a great number of health challenges beyond cholera. Cholera is just the immediate problem, but we have issues with malaria, with measles, with mental health issues, reproductive health. We need to get the whole health system back up and running, and this is going to be a job that is going to go beyond the next few months and into the rest of this year in order to fully support the Ministry of Health to actually get services properly up and running. The immediate ask is for $40 million to be put into the health system in order just to get it up and running in the next.
Based in Tobruk. Supported mainly by Arab powers, that government, with its Libyan National Army, now controls most of Libya. Here's Adel El-Makri with more.
Since its formation, the Libyan Eastern government didn't succeed to gain much international recognition. Libya's parliament, which is globally acknowledged, formed that Benghazi-based government, yet many Western countries have deliberately marginalized it.
The international community gave recognition to the Sikharat Agreement, therefore the Eastern Transitional Government being marginalized, simply because it is not a product of that 2015 agreement. Most countries have not been giving any considerations to the decisions of this transitional government or even Abdullah Athani, its prime minister.
Recently, though, the world is gradually changing its approach to the Eastern government. Thanks to the Libyan National Army, that government gained control over most Libyan territories, while the internationally recognized government in Tripoli continues to lack authority over most parts of the divided country. That has forced some countries to be more pragmatic.
Some European countries realized that dealing with General Khalifa Haftar directly may seem as a support for him. Instead, these countries saw that it's better to coordinate with the strongest partner, the Eastern government in security, within the framework of counter-terrorism and illegal migration.
The United Nations has scheduled a tribal conference in Libya on April 14. With the Eastern government's influence and control over most Libyan territories, this conference could reflect the magnitude of support Tripoli and Benghazi governments actually have on the ground. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
South Africa's largest opposition party, the Democratic Alliance, says law enforcement has to be stepped up in order to try and combat crimes such as drug trafficking and marine poaching, which it says are increasing at an alarming rate. Rene Delcalm has that story.
Crime syndicates steal over 620 million rands worth of marine resources along South Africa's coastline every year. And the DA claims that the South African national government is out of its depth when it comes to fighting crime in the Western Cape, especially crimes such as gangsterism, drug dealing and marine poaching, which are closely intertwined.
Marine poaching is a huge problem that faces South Africa. It is one of our huge resources that we have, but at the moment it's being completely plundered. It puts this entire industry, this entire livelihood for people in South Africa at great risk.
The gangs run much of the poaching operations. They have a heavy presence. We see gang members' involvement in some of the vessels, the houses to which the poached goods are taken are gang houses. And so if you want to impact on the gang situation, you have to cut off all those bits of the criminal economy that support them.
DA authorities who run the Western Cape province say it's time for the ANC government to decentralize power when it comes to policing and give them the authority to fight crime in the Western Cape at a provincial level instead of a national one.
The South African police service should be devolved down to a provincial level. It will enable them to far better focus their resources, their manpower on addressing the issues at a provincial level. The National Policing Plan, which is an overlay for the entire country, doesn't take into account local peculiarities. Poaching and poaching's links into gangsterism, drugs and organised crime in the Western Cape.
Poaching happens, it's a space where the abalone gets handed over to other vessels, the drug trade happens. So it's a component of the bigger picture. And of course, that's why this is one slither of how do we make this a safer Western Cape.
The DA says the City of Cape Town Special Marine and Environmental Enforcement Unit seized nearly 15,000 stolen marine resources and arrested 45 poachers in the past year, making it harder for criminals to navigate these waters. Renee Delcalm, CGTN, Hout Bay, near Cape Town, South Africa.
Well, time now for a short break. Here's what's still ahead on the program. What next for the United Kingdom? Brexit agreement proves elusive yet again. And African designers showcase their talent at the Accra Fashion Week with an eye on global recognition.
Data out of the country. The country's foreign currency reserves.
With a dedicated and diverse team of anchors, CGTN now brings Africa to the palm of your hand.
I'm Perina Karibe in the heart of Nairobi, which is bustling.
From everyday heroes to the continent's most powerful figures, we bring their voices to you.
We haven't changed. And this is something most of us are very excited about.
We bring you news that's changing perspectives.
From Nairobi City Center.
News that brings Africa to the world. CGTN. See the difference. Africa Live. Find your voice.
Right, let's start in the UK now, where lawmakers have once again failed to vote for any kind of Brexit deal. This is liable to put the country on a collision course with Brussels as the clock continues ticking down.
This is now the second time the House has considered a wide variety of options for a way forward. It has once again failed to find a clear majority for any of the options. And yet the result of the House's decision on Friday not to endorse the withdrawal agreement means that the default legal position is that the UK will leave the EU in just 11 days' time.
Well, MPs had 4 options which would keep the country in a close relationship with the European Union after Brexit, and as we heard there, they rejected them all. The options were alternatives to Prime Minister Theresa May's deal, a deal that itself has been rejected 3 times by Parliament already. The option most narrowly defeated would call on the government to renegotiate the terms of a permanent customs union with the EU. That motion lost just by 3 votes. Well, Brexit is now more likely to crash, or rather Britain is more likely to crash out of the European Union without a divorce agreement. EU's chief Brexit negotiator Michel Barnier has said the bloc is ready to accept the possibility of Britain remaining within its customs union and granted access to the single market. This is the same relationship it has with Norway, granting it very limited trade restrictions without being a member of the union. Speaking at an event in Brussels, Barnier has said Britain now has 3 choices before the scheduled exit.
By President Donald Tusk, planned for the 10th of April next week. Number 1, there is a possibility of a successful, meaningful vote in the coming days. Still, the House of Commons did not manage to find a majority again last night in its second round of indicative votes. We will continue to follow how the process unfolds in the UK. On our side, we have always said, and I repeat, that we can accept a customs union or a relationship along the style of the Norway model. In fact, however, the political declaration today can accommodate all of these options already. It leaves the door open for a variety of outcomes. But if the UK so wishes, we are ready to rework the political declaration as long as the fundamental principles of the EU are respected.
And turning to news from Libya now, virtually all development projects have been put on hold in the country since it descended into political instability back in 2011. Attention now turns to a United Nations conference in mid-April. The mayor of Zintan, one of the biggest cities in northwest Libya, hopes it will bring changes to his resource-strapped city.
Hundreds of blue pipes lay abandoned in Libya's city of Zintan. Residents have been struggling to get enough water after the 2011 revolution halted their favorite sport on the world's largest irrigation project. City authorities cannot meet all.
Even if the water has reached the city of Zintan, we cannot distribute it because the pipeline network is old, damaged, and the network was not developed in parallel with the urban expansion. Even the old network was not sufficient.
Truck drivers usually collect water from a reservoir to deliver to residents' homes. Some make the trip 8 times a day just to meet the people's basic needs. Families in the area are estimated to use around 40,000 liters of water a month. Zintan was said to be part of Libya's Great Man-Made River project. The vast scheme taps water from underground aquifers deep in the Sahara Desert, purifies it and transports it north. But the city lost its place on the project, leaving locals to rely on the old delivery system for water.
In the field of underground reserves, the backup station was completely destroyed from the year 2011. Until now, the station and the reserves around it are out of service.
The reservoir feeds wells at the foot of the Nafusa Mountains. Water is collected by truckers who take the steep
encroachment and dumping of waste in the lake.